Good morning, fourth graders. Happy Wednesday. I'm here to do our weekly lesson on the history of voting rights. So today we are going to be continuing working on the study of voting rights in America. Last week we read a timeline about the history of voting rights in America, and in today's lesson you might be able to tell which part of this complicated history we'll be focusing on as we move forward over the next few weeks. Today we're going to read a speech that was written a long time ago in 1873. This makes it called a primary source. Okay? A primary source is an original document or first-hand account of a historical time period. Some other examples of primary sources are audio recordings, video recordings, diary entries, journals, letters, photographs, and speeches. Today we'll be reading a speech called On Women's Right to Suffrage by Susan B. Anthony. Today's learning target, or what you should know or be able to do by the end of the lesson, is I can infer the meanings of words and phrases using context clues to better understand a primary source. You might be thinking, what's a context clue? A context clue is a detail in the text that helps us understand a word. We started doing some of this work last week by thinking about strategies we can use to help us understand unfamiliar words. Context clues are just anything you see in the text that makes you think, oh, I think this word means blank, okay? Our second learning target is I can explain points made in this speech using details from the text. And like I said, the speech we'll be reading today is On Women's Right to Suffrage by Susan B. Anthony. Because primary sources are often use unfamiliar language, this can make them difficult to understand without using close reading. Close reading is something we have done many times together in class, and it's really just how we engage with a text by reading it more than once. In fact, many of the articles we used to read together in class, we would read 2 or even 3 times through. Let's review some of the things that we can do as close readers when we're reading a new text. First, you can read small chunks of the text slowly to think about the main idea. We also know how to annotate the text. We did a lot of this in class, right? Circling repeating words, highlighting supporting details, and identifying the mini main idea of each individual paragraph. We also need to make sure that we're reading questions carefully, right? And then going back into the text to find our answers to the questions, using evidence, using details from the text. Finally, you want to talk with someone about the answers that you find. You will be surprised how easily you can grow ideas by talking to others about what you found out or the answers that you have in your head so far. So today we're going to read for the main idea. In fact, we're going to read, like I said, the speech On Women's Right to Suffrage by Susan B. Anthony. So right now you should be pulling up that assignment on Google Classroom if you haven't already. Hopefully you can be watching my video on a different device and then have the speech pulled up from Google Classroom. It's called On Women's Right to Suffrage, speech by Susan B. Anthony. It says use this on Wednesday, April 15th, that's today, and tomorrow, Thursday, April 16th. So I will read our primary source. That is the speech, right? This speech, like I said, was read and written in 1873. That's when Susan B. Anthony wrote it. So I will read it, and as you read along, I want you to read it along on your screen, in your head or out loud if it's helpful. Remember, you do not need to understand everything in the text, but you should be listening for the main idea, right? As I'm reading, try and think to yourself, what do you think this speech is mostly about? All right, here we go. On Women's Right to Suffrage, excerpt from a speech by Susan B. Anthony given in 1873. Friends and fellow citizens, I stand before you tonight under indictment for the alleged crime of having voted at the last presidential election without having a lawful right to vote. It shall be my work this evening to prove to you that in thus voting, I not only committed no crime, but instead simply exercised my citizens' rights, guaranteed to me and all United States citizens by the national Constitution, beyond the power of any state to deny. The preamble of the federal Constitution says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. It was we, the people, not we, the white male citizens, nor yet we, the male citizens, but we, the whole people, who formed the Union. And we formed it, not to give the blessings of liberty, but to secure them, not to the half of ourselves and the half of our posterity, but the whole people, women as well as men. And it is a downright mockery to talk to women of their enjoyment of the blessings of liberty, while they are denied the use of the only means of securing them provided by this democratic Republican government, the ballot. All right, that's the end of the speech by Susan B. Anthony. Whew, that was long, so don't forget you always have this accessible to you if you need to go back and read it a second time. Or you can rewind me reading it on this YouTube video to hear me read it a second time. Now think to yourself, what was this speech mostly about? I would be surprised if you understood every word or every sentence because it was written such a long time ago, but based on what you can understand, what do you think this speech was mostly about? On the second page, there's a box that says, after reading the speech, what do you think this speech is mostly about? For example, what seems to be one big or main idea that you can take away from the information in this speech? You're going to write your answers in the box right here. And then when you're done, you won't press turn in because we'll finish these pages tomorrow with my next YouTube video. However, I do want you to start thinking about what is the big idea, or what is the point, what is the main idea from the speech that we just read together? All right, I can't wait to read your answers and to see what you thought about reading the speech. Tomorrow we'll do more reading about, specifically, more lessons about the vocabulary in the speech and how to break it down. All right, have a great afternoon.